I don't know much about microphones. Do these work?
Yep, just talk right into them. You're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Leslie Morgan, and I am a concerned resident of Radnor, which brings me out here today. I've lived in the community for going on 19 years and raised my son here. I'm going to read and stay on script and then hand it over to Luke, the sitting commissioner, and then we will open up for a few questions, okay? So again, my name is Leslie Morgan. We, as concerned residents of Radnor Township, are here today to demand explanations from Phil R. sympathizers, Elaine Schaefer, Jim Higgins, and Commissioner John Nagel, and to demand the immediate resignation of Commissioner John Nagel. The sordid Phil R. affair began on September 21st, 2017, when Delaware County Criminal Investigation Division, or CID as we call them, acting upon information from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, raided the home of Radnor Township Board of Commissioners President Philip R. Upon execution of the search warrant, Philip R. admitted that he possessed child pornography. Devices and business equipment belonging to him were seized and for further investigation. The Radnor Township Board of Commissioners were made aware that Philip R. was the subject of the raid and the nature of the investigation a few days later on, I believe it was 9/25. Our community would, in the days and weeks that followed, come to find out that the investigation uncovered the likes of the following: child pornography, some of which depicted abuse of children as young as 2 years old. I'm going to repeat that, as young as 2 years old. While others sickeningly involved sadomasochistic sex acts between children and animals, or what some would call bestiality. Furthermore, Board President Philip R. engaged in chat rooms where he boasted about sexually abusing his own relatives when they were younger, stating, "Nice memories, but they don't remember it." Further, he admitted to prey on the fear of children and went so far as to say, and I quote, "Crying makes it hotter." The prosecutor on this case, Michelle Rotella, an experienced child sex crimes prosecutor, stated, and I quote, "These were some of the most vile chats that I have ever read. His communications were violent. They were wicked. They were depraved," unquote. Elaine Paul Schaefer, Jim Higgins, and current Commissioner John Nagel had the opportunity to remove him, this monster, as the board president at the public meeting on October 9th, 2017. Over 2 weeks after the full board was informed. So again, they were informed on 9/25 in a closed session. They were informed. Phil R. had admitted this when he was picked up. The nature of the raid. Commissioner Richard Booker made a motion to remove Phil R. as board president. Astonishingly, the motion failed 3-3 along party lines. I'm going to repeat that. The motion failed 3-3 along party lines. Elaine Paul Schaefer, Jim Higgins, and John Nagel were not being asked to remove him from the board. That motion was only to remove him as president or leadership of our community so that we could heal. Their feeble excuses for not taking action don't hold water then, or didn't hold water then, and they don't hold it now. However, rumor and speculation were enough for the township to remove Phil R.'s bio 2 days after the raid. So the raid was the 21st of September. They removed the bio from the township website on the 23rd. The full board was apprised of the raid and what they found on the 25th. October 9th, we had a Board of Commissioner meetings, which I attended, and that wasn't enough. I was at the meeting on October 9th, and after the motion failed, I actually asked Elaine, who was acting president that night, if she would hold what I called a meeting as soon as he was charged, and I was met with silence from her. 2 days later, Elaine Schaefer, Jim Higgins, and John Nagel's feeble excuses for their failure to act came to a crashing end. With what everybody in the township already knew, Phil R. was charged with the most heinous acts of child pornography that any of us have ever seen. Even after the depraved nature of these crimes became explicitly known to our Radnor community, acting President Elaine Schaefer refused to call a meeting to remove R as president. If Elaine Schaefer and her cohorts were so seriously concerned about this issue, they would have called the meeting and removed him as president to allow for our community to begin to heal. But once again, Elaine Schaefer's judgment was clouded by her own political interests, or self-interests, I should say. Instead, she allowed this predator to decide when he was going to resign on his own terms. At the time when our community desperately needed leadership, what happened? Our Commissioner John Nagel attends the sentencing hearing of this animal and demonstrates his open support for him. As the government was presenting their case, detailing the torture, abuse, bestiality, and depravity. I'm sorry, I need a moment. As the government was presenting their case detailing the torture, abuse, bestiality, and depravity of these crimes, Commissioner Nagel continues to support this monster by saying, and I quote, I just think he's been treated so unfairly. I just think he's been treated so unfairly. It's unbelievable that even after the hearing of these vicious details of these crimes, that Commissioner Nagel still refuses to distance himself from Phil R. Thank God the sentencing judge, Judge Michael Baleson, did not share the opinion of John Nagel, Elaine Schaefer, or Jim Higgins. I am going to repeat that. Thank God that the judge did not share the opinion of Mr. R. supporters. Under the leadership of Elaine Schaefer, the Board of Commissioners acted perversely, irresponsibly, and dangerously from the very beginning of this matter, and the so-called community leaders continued to demonstrate their irresponsibility to this very day. Commissioner Nagel, who we know to be an overt supporter of child pornographer Phil R., remains the chairman of the Public Health Committee and member of the Parks and Recs community here in our community. Just 2 days ago, he voted against his own censure. He voted against his own censure for saying, I think he's been unfairly treated. Maybe we need an OMG from the audience here. Commissioner Nagel, your time is up. You voted against your own censure after writing a letter of support for a known child predator. We will not wait any longer for you to resign. We can see the major failures of your judgment. You do not deserve the trust of this community. We are asking for your immediate resignation. If you are so blind to the errors of your ways that you fail to resign, I ask the board to strip you of your committees immediately so your support of this monster no longer pervades this community. Some of the things I personally don't understand as a mom. I just don't understand how an elected public official, after all the details were made known, attended a sentencing hearing and supported me with a letter and positive comments. And I really don't understand all the secrecy, and I really need the press to cover this part. Why is the sentencing memo sealed? Why aren't we as Radnor residents able to see the sentencing memo and all the people that wrote letters of support? What if a sitting county council member in Delaware County wrote a letter of support? I think we deserve to know. We are calling for Elaine Paul Schaefer and the acting president at the time to answer these questions and for John Nagel to step down. I thank you for listening. I'm not really good in front of the mic. I hand it over to somebody much better.
And I want to thank you, Leslie. That was very well said, and it takes a lot of courage to get up and say something like that. But I think it was well said, and it's something the residents needed to hear. So I wanted to come and I wanted to follow Leslie's comments today. My name is Luke Clark, and I'm a proud Radnor resident, father of 4 children, and commissioner on this board since 2015. I'm here to further shed light on the comments previously made by Ms. Morgan about the actions of Radnor Township, the Radnor Township Board of Commissioners prior to the arrest of Phil R. On September 21st, as Leslie said, the day Phil R's home was raided by the Delaware County Criminal Investigation Division of the District Attorney's Office, or CID, the 6 commissioners, except for Philip R., were called into an emergency executive session at 12 o'clock noon. All of the sitting commissioners with the exception of President R, attended either in person or via telephone. All 6, with the exception of Phil R, attended in person or via conference call. At the executive session, we were briefed by Superintendent William Colarulo, Police Superintendent Colarulo, regarding the information he received from CID. Superintendent Colarulo informed us of the following: that earlier that morning, a search warrant was executed at the home of then President Commissioner Phil R. The search warrant was for child pornography. Materials and electronic devices were in fact confiscated. And even when asked by a member of the Board of Commissioners if this warrant was in any way politically motivated, done in error, the response was no, the IP address was traced to the target, Philip R., and that there was no mistake. 2 weeks after, at the public meeting on October 9th, as Ms. Morgan referenced, which followed the raid on President R's home and our executive session, Commissioner Richard Booker, who is present here lending his support as well, made a motion to remove Philip R. as president, not from the Board of Commissioners, as president. Under our charter, that could be done at any time for any reason. The motion failed by a vote of 3-3, with Democrats Elaine Schaefer, John Nagel, and Jim Higgins voting to retain this monster as the face of the township, despite what we had been briefed on 2 weeks earlier in our executive session. They didn't even have the decency to strip him of his committee posts. And let me be clear, I'm not saying that Elaine Schaefer condones these hideous crimes committed by Phil R. I am, however, saying that, that Elaine Schaefer, who is an attorney, and the other 2 commissioners had enough information to remove this predator as the face of our township. The excuses that Elaine Schaefer and her cohorts provided to the Mainline Times for their failure to remove Phil R. are just not credible. Evidence of the duplicity of these excuses is that 2 days after the raid, the township staff felt the information they received was reliable enough to remove Phil R.'s information and biography from the township website. Apparently that wasn't good enough for Elaine Schaefer. Ironically, the name of Phil R., or any other picture of him, is now completely erased from the township website. I'm sure that Elaine Schaefer, John Nagel, and Jim Higgins wish that they could delete any of the prior decisions and poor decisions that they made, but life doesn't work that way. We still live in a society where you need to be held accountable for your actions. And if the information was reliable enough for the township to remove this monster from the website, you have to ask yourself why it wasn't credible enough for Elaine Schaefer to remove him from the ceremonial role as president. Quite surprisingly, the answer is a simple one. At that time, Elaine Paul Schaefer had a pending ethics complaint against her, and Phil R. was her vote as president of the Board of Commissioners under our charter. 999 times out of 1,000, this type of partisan politics that's engaged in never matters, all right? But it certainly mattered in this case. When Elaine Schaefer was asked on Monday for comment, Tuesday, earlier this week, she made it very clear that she didn't want to talk about her actions prior to Phil R.'s arrest, and that any discussion of her failure to act would be political. Elaine, I bet you don't want to talk about those events based on what I just said. This has nothing to do with politics. I'm not running for re-election, and in fact, I don't plan to run for anything ever again. Elaine, you're the one running for countywide office. And hypocritically, you're running on the platform of transparency. And running for office is not new for you. It's nothing new. You've run for commissioner twice, state representative once, and now you're running for county council, each time with John Nagel as your treasurer and fundraiser. And we already heard from Ms. Morgan about what John Nagel's position is on Phil R. So your excuse that a review of your actions would be political is ridiculous. You have to answer for your actions in allowing an individual that you knew, or that you should have known at least, possess child pornography to remain as president of the Board of Commissioners and be arrested as president of the Board of Commissioners by CID. What's worse is that this depraved individual used township equipment and resources to commit these crimes. As soon as the severity of these crimes became known, you ran away from this decision as fast as you could, but the reality is that you, John Nagel, and Jim Higgins all supported Phil R. This was an incredible lapse of judgment, and you